Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to I created the Villainess alignment chart. It broke me. Now some of you may know I am really obsessed with the Villainess stuff, so I consumed almost everything that says Villainess, at least when it comes to manga and webtoons. And maybe some series, but usually the series come after or way after that I've already read the series, so I never really feel compelled to watch it. Unless it's maybe certain series, then maybe I'll watch it, but that's pretty rare for the most cases. But I really wanted to check this out because I thought it would be very interesting to look at it. And if you do enjoy this video, then be sure to support the original video. And if you do enjoy my reaction, then be sure to give it a like, comment down below, subscribe, and share, okay? Now let's get started.
A little bit over a year ago, I detailed my obsession with the villainous subgenre.
Yeah, me too.
On this channel. And in the subsequent year, well, the rabbit hole has gotten deeper. I've read even more stories I've embedded in the community. Thousands of people have asked me for something I made for a punchline to become real, which has consumed my every waking moment, and a bunch of my recommendations from last time are now in line for adaptations, including The Holy Grail of Eris and the one
I'm looking forward to that one.
Villainess. This video hopes to expand
one's
a bit
becoming
on
one
my
too.
One, though I would still recommend watching that before this if you haven't. Links in the description, insofar as this is just more.
I'll check that out next time.
Including ones that the community begged me to talk about in the comments, and yes, the alignment chart, a joke turned into this video's structure, which I will happily begin to explain, starting with our top left stories, right after I pitch you the villainous I had to cut for time in the last video. But where did I leave off again? Punch, wall.
Oh yeah, that one's so fun.
One final thing is a villainous story without a reincarnation or a time loop, which already gives it an interesting subversion to the standard template, even while Scarlet, our lead, is condemned in it.
I'm so excited for the anime for this.
Opens the door for the Mad Dog Princess, a woman who loves punching those who annoy her, to take center stage. Now free from the yoke of her awful engagement to a prince who spent their time together bullying her, Scarlet, along with the Crown Prince, is off to root out corruption from this land, one fist connecting with one piece of shit at a time. May I ask does a great job differentiating itself from its contemporaries.
I
so
love
many
that.
villainous stories are focused on the past, especially previous lives, and slowly coming to terms with a new future. By the nature of this story, our cast has minimal issue with that, and it gets to pick and choose what traits it wants to steal from the villainous toolbox. What you wind up with is some kind of battle action / political drama hybrid with your usual romance and comedy angles, and I think it rocks. The world building is primarily efficient and yet has some interesting teeth to it. There's a real focus on the dynamics of power within a nation, religions competing with one another, noble factions clashing, and while these larger conflicts stay pretty solidly good, evil, black and white, the interpersonal conflicts between characters do a fine job of getting murky. The art in the fight scenes flows extremely well, and climactic fights get a boost from the various superpowers without going overboard. The romance can definitely be hit or miss depending on the audience. The best way to describe it for a general viewing public is Jinshi and Mao Mao vibes, where the Crown...
Let me just tell you that most, a lot of viewers like that kind of dynamic, I guess.
Prince finds Scarlet interesting because of how she responds to her circumstances and her personality. And that actually evolves into something way more substantial as the series progresses.
Makes me want to reread it now.
Dealing with darker tones in a way that feels realistic but hopeful, and manages heartfelt character dynamics both with grand and subtle gestures. The second major arc of the story is a highlight, with intrigue and the world's mythology at play, and the current manga arc in another country has added even more layers of fun to the story. Imagining the sequence of the orchestra playing as Scarlet blasts her way through a castle to destroy a slave trader is impeccable. I need it. But where
I love that
alignment chart, and what even is the villainous alignment chart? Well, first thing, it's just for fun. Villainous stories frequently are using the same tropes, and so if you're the kind of person who enjoys categorizing things, this alignment chart is absolutely
he read that one too,
as it's taking series and slotting them in basically based on their adherence to tropes. What's fun though is discovering that two stories that are in the same category couldn't be more different in terms of style and substance, while at their atomic level possessing many of the same features. Also, in a sea of subgenres and editorial focuses where we have from the most broad fantasy and shoujo down to the more specific villainous and otome isekai, the alignment chart is a helpful way to classify. What do you consider a villainous story, and what's otome fantasy, and what's something else entirely? At the end of the day, though, this is for discussion and always for fun. Take it as seriously as you desire, and if the answer to that is not at all, don't worry, this is basically an excuse for recommendations and conversation, so let's jump in.
Let's do
Unsurprisingly,
this.
our top left is character purist, structure purist. These are the examples that are undeniably villainous stories.
Oh yeah, Philomel, the fake. Yeah, that makes sense. And same with the... What's funny is that I read so many to the point that I forgot their titles, but I remember the story itself. It's really weird. Do you guys have that problem too, now that if you consume like a whole bunch of villainous stories?
Our
They all sound the same, title-wise sometimes.
To our protagonist and asks if they are the villainess, aka is the female lead of the story portrayed, if not in actuality, at least performatively, either in universe or in the fiction prior to the reincarnation/time loop, as the jilted lover, the evil
I love that
force,
one.
the one who treats others poorly, etc. In other words, are they the bad guy even if they are not?
This one was actually really good though.
Scarlet, for example, is
It
not
surprised
actually a villain.
me
However,
how
the
refreshing it
narrative
was.
portrays her that way, which is what leads to her condemnation, where we get into structure. Structure asks a question of the condemnation event. The moment in which the villainess is condemned for their actions, real or fabricated, and is exiled, killed, or has some other horrible fate as a result. The question is if this moment is the organizing structure of the story, or is it simply the...
This one made me cry so hard, especially in the scene where it was like the attic and then the fireworks. Oh, that made me cry so much when we know like what happened to her in the past and then the amount of injustice that she had to experience.
inciting incident? Or does it lack anything that could be considered a condemnation at all? In Scarlet's case, her condemnation kicks off the plot and serves as the broad scaffolding for the first arc. That's not as singularly focused as something like Hamefuro, where the threat of the condemnation event is a sword of Damocles hanging over Katarina, and avoiding flags or breaking them is her entire modus operandi. Nor is it as honed as Remelia's raison d'etre, getting revenge on those who orchestrated the condemnation in the one within the villainess. However,
that's true.
Mask, to me, is a good example of using the condemnation as a launch into the series for character work and early plot development before growing into more of the traditional fantasy space regarding the story arcs. Personally, I place May I Ask as a structure-neutral, character-purist title, though I could see an argument for pure top left. You could argue that this is a trend for a bunch of post-condemnation series that aren't revenge-oriented, or don't carry the ramifications out in the long term. Seventh Time Loop comes to mind as one that lands here, for example, but also, that's my subjective opinion. Accomplishments of the Duke's Daughter is a really fun...
This was the one that really got me into the villainous genre. Like, I read the manga for this first, and then I read the novel because I was so into it, and that just totally ignited my entire desire to read every single villainous type of thing ever.
Read, and you can argue its condemnation is just an inciting incident since so much of the work is building up the thief and very little attention is paid to revenge, as it were, but in my opinion there's enough there dragging us back to high society that the condemnation doesn't only feel like a launcher, whereas that's how I feel about it in The Villainess with Special Circumstances. Everything Letitia does post-annulment using her nurse training has very little to do with her condemnation. May I Ask is kind of perfectly in that gap. Not that it matters in my case since I consider both of these squares to be villainous stories, but could matter for you if your interpretation of the subgenre's specifics is a bit more rigid.
Mine's not.
A deep recommendation on a true dyed-in-the-wool structure purist, character purist story, let's mix the country of origin up. I didn't get to do a deep dive into any Korean manhwa last time, so
yes!
I'll fix that now. Your Throne
webtoons.
is a marvel,
oh
one
my
of my
gosh,
absolute
I
favorites
loved
this
this
subgenre
one.
has to offer, and yet I have a confession. I bounced off of it the first time I read it. It was in reading the comments of folks who watched my first video saying, oh, you love the Holy Grail of Eris, you will definitely love Your Throne, that I gave it a second chance, and by golly, am I thankful for it. Because, while I don't think that comparison is particularly good, if you do want a villainess who doesn't turn lawful good after a chapter, a saintess who's willing to get her hands dirty, toxic relationships that are slowly destroying everyone involved in all caps, and a slow burn that is still 200 chapters in, surprising me in the best ways,
this was probably the first one that really made me enjoy extremely gray villainous characters as the main character. Plus, the art is like so beautiful, and it was really popular in Korea for a while too, if I remember correctly. And it's just the amount of twists and the way that they portrayed the story and presented it. It was like a whirlwind of emotions, but thriller too.
Your Throne is undoubtedly a story for you. I'm not joking about the lawful good thing. Chapter 1 introduces us to our primary protagonist and villainess, Medea, who is willing to kill with her own hands, while her friend turned love rival Psyche is the lawful good sunshine angel caricature saintess that we've all come to expect at this point. And I think that's why I bounced off, because the early chapters don't properly get into the character depth, especially of our deuteragonist Psyche. That's coming after some twists, the first of those twists being that Medea, when going to confront Psyche for becoming the crown prince's fiancé, switches bodies with her by happenstance. And once that happens, the illusions and preconceived notions that the reader has because of their experience with other villainous stories wash away under a torrent of surprising and horrifying reveals of character backstories, motivations, and relationships that weave into something impossible to put down. Psyche's circumstances are revealed to be far from the idyllic heroine backstory,
that was
and her
total
lack of awareness about the prince's true colors, despite wearing them on his sleeve, lead to intense character growth for her. Medea's loyalty comes into sharp focus as well. Her desire for power and respect are not merely because she believes she's owed them for her station, but because she has fought every day for them and will not be denied. Their relationship with each other is the central axis of the story, but the secondary characters get fleshed out nicely, none more so than Heli, who is simply the embodiment of toxic dependence, and God do I love him. And then there's Eros, our crown prince, who is one of my favorite antagonists in the subgenre because he is just so damned evil, convinced in his righteousness. Arcs take an eternity, the pace is as close to glacial as I can personally put up with, but the chess moves are so engaging.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
payoffs, or frankly, the lack thereof sometimes, always hit just right to keep me coming back for more. And getting to watch Medea do Medea things and learn that even more of this world was designed to put me into emotional hell, I love this animation there for it. So to me, it's a no-brainer that Your Throne is our top left here. We've got a body swap as the inciting incident, so I can kind of understand why some might not consider that a condemnation. But not only is there a true condemnation event wherein Psyche is chosen over Medea, something shown in the first chapter and fleshed out far later, not to mention that Psyche being chosen was what launches the events that lead to the body swap in the first place. But by chapter 17, we are very clearly in a true revenge series based on this moment, and arguably more than one person's, which is the scaffolding for the entire story. It's Your Throne. It's a true villainous. I will not entertain discussion to the contrary. Meanwhile, our bottom left is where you would find a bunch of series like The Rewards of Marriage and In Another World, My Sister Stole My Name. No time loops, no big projects, just characters who have bad social credit because of others' actions and now must do their best. I think these are good examples because for the most part this category is filled with heroines in more traditional fantasy storylines who are misunderstood because of a general misunderstanding, or they have replaced the original character who got the bad rap deservedly. Lizelle, who is mistaken for a scammer on top of isekai into
one of my favorites.
With a terrible reputation, or someone like Avril, who takes the place of her bad-mannered twin after being black-sheeped by her family and an incompetent woman wants to be the villainess. Meanwhile, in our character-neutral column, you have as the protagonist not the villainess, but a supporting character. A maid, a butler, a best friend, a mob character, etc., who is trying to prevent the bad end or helps out post-banishment. If you've been dying for a male main character in this space, congratulations, you now have options. You can go very traditional with something like the villainess's butler, or one of the cuties in the space being I'm not even an NPC in this Otome game. Holy Grail
I think I read that one.
Land here if you
I love that one.
Constance isn't the villain,
so good.
Scarlet is. See my first video for more on why this series is my number one. This is also where you'll find the extremely popular observation.
This one was hilarious.
The protagonist is the love interest. The
you don't take it seriously.
That is supposed to despise the villainess who is aware that that's the role that she is supposed to play. But for what it's worth, my favorite structure, pure character neutral right now, is leave your divorce to a professional lawyer.
Oh yes, this one was pretty good.
And winds up assisting a bunch of villainesses.
This content creator has good taste.
Out of their marriages and engagements as the women run the gamut on all of the usual tropes. It is very, very fun. Natasha is a great character to root for with an interesting backstory and a nice lens inversion on the usual structure. Our lawyer isn't aware of the fiction that the villainesses are. She's just living a normal life, and it really lends some fun to us readers who are like, oh, yeah, this does sound completely irrational now that you're on the other side of the villainess who is working on knowledge that Natasha does not have, but that we can assume thanks to our genre awareness. Heading down to structure neutral, character neutral, aka true neutral, which is condemnation launches the story but not the whole shebang. Funnily enough, you could argue Lady Rose goes here, for all my real ones who go back that
Oh
far.
yes,
But the two
I like that one.
here are the Otome heroines fight for survival.
I feel like I'm just saying that like every single one, but I really did read them and enjoyed them, so.
And I can't believe this is a title. The villainess who came to marry into a frontier noble's household is an exceptionally capable wife, isn't she?
Sounds familiar.
Magi Revo I could see an argument for here, though personally I slot it above this one. Structure radical character neutral is maybe the rarest category alongside true neutral. One of the only examples I could come up with that wasn't debatable was the case where I followed the freezing lady and she doted on me like crazy, which is, yeah, that's a title. There are definitely more than this. Another one that lands here would be Fed Up with being the spoiled queen's genius butler.
I don't think I read those.
And built the world's strongest army. Again, another hell of a title, but I tend not to love the stories that fall into this square. So a lot of the examples that land here I've started and have since dropped. A fate that is absolutely
probably
not
would
the
be
case
me
for
the
our
same
next
too.
Animated recommendation. The Two Perfect Saint has a villainous bent. Our protagonist, who is thrown out of the kingdom by her fiance, the second prince, so that he can be with her younger sister, is not the villainess in question though. Philia is, by every account I can think of, a true saintess, working on behalf of her country in all facets, and her abilities are second to none.
I remember reading this, but there were no more chapters
for another country. The villainess is actually Mia, our deuteragonist, also saint, who loves Philia and hates the parents and fiance who threw her older sister out, now striving to protect the country and also take those people down. It's a fun read that balances a kind of comfy learning to become more than your station and what it means to live with people who value you for you in Philia, and also the takedown machination with Mia, and I think the balance actually works really well. I like the art style, I find the character dynamics engaging. Maybe I'm a bit soppy, but Philia finding a community that respects and appreciates her for her, in addition to the amazing things she can do, just brings a smile to my face.
Me
and
too.
then I get to watch Mia destroy
again.
the people who prevented her from having those things in her home country. Frankly, it's a perfect combo. There's been an announced anime adaptation for this series, which I'm very excited about.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Many of these adaptations has been rough. The less we talk about villainous who goes down in history, the better. But Studio Troika is tackling this one, and I loved Overtake, so I'm hopeful that they'll be able to expand on expressive and thematic panels to create a phenomenal adaptation so that more people will enjoy the balance of saintess and villainous in Philia and Mia's story. And that leaves us with our final column, character
That makes me look
radical.
forward to the
AKA,
anime.
If there is a villainess at all, which there does not have to be, she is
I
not
like
primary or secondary in the cast. And to me,
I
none
know
of these
it's
are villainous
not
stories,
always
but I'll stick
liked,
to the
but I
general
like
vibe
all of
just for the
these.
sake of argumentation, in case you do want to help make your own case for various squares as being villainous or not. So let's chat about I don't care about the original work, I'm too busy trying to make a living.
Surprisingly, this one, I didn't really have much expectations, but I really enjoyed the character dynamics, their relationship with each other, and the way that she is improving her own, fiefdom or whatever land that she has to take care of, or the city that she has to take care of. So this one I really enjoy. I'm looking forward to it releasing a bit more chapters before I read more of it, though.
In which our main character is reincarnated into a novel, but by the time she's aware of her situation, the quote-unquote main story has already elapsed. The villainess has become queen after time looping back to an earlier point in her life, having successfully beaten her condemnation event. The villainess is not a relevant character in the work, except for how the men she's discarded are slowly but surely surrounding Penelope, who is doing her absolute best to keep her estate and land in good shape as the Lord. I'll Save a Decent Family would go here as well, trying to avoid the familial destruction, but our main character just isn't a villainess. Structure neutral, character radical, pick your fantasy of choice, odds are it lands here. This square is big on the post-condemnations that serve as launchpads before quickly cycling into a much larger focus. For male lead stuff, I think you could argue a bunch of "I was exiled from the hero's party" kind of stories land here as well. A very funny reality of the villainous alignment chart. A funny reality, at least, until I show you the last square.
What do you mean?
This is the secret I have been hiding from you this entire time, for over a year now. True Radical is literally every other story. Any story that doesn't slot into one of our other spots. That's
that
right.
Makes sense.
The villainous alignment chart is not only an alignment chart for villainous stories, but all stories. Everything you can think of, from Philomel the Fake in obvious top left to Infinite Jest in obvious bottom right.
So it just covers everything.
Here. Everyone is here, Smash Ultimate style. But that doesn't really get into what I think makes this chart so fun in actuality. Because everything has a place here, it's particularly interesting to take a weird edge case and make the argument that it slots in somewhere else. Yona of the Dawn is one of my favorite anime and manga, and I started it long before I really knew what a villainous story even was. And couldn't you argue that Yona has a condemnation event in which she is forced to flee from her castle and desires to retake what is hers, setting the stage for her journey and character growth? Isn't she a little bit villainousy as far as public opinion is concerned in those opening episodes, considering her a spoiled brat? Friends, let me ask, have we stumbled into a shocking reality, fallen further down the rabbit hole, and arrived at the conclusion that Yona of the Dawn is actually a top-left villainous series?
Yes, I agree.
In the pages of the universe since time immemorial, that in fact all stories are actually villainous stories if you simply open your mind to the possibility.
Actually, yeah, I could see that if they're a female lead, baby.
No. I would not argue that Yona is a villainous series, but as I joked in my previous...
I mean, you know, if you're not having like a super strict, then yeah, I guess depending on the point of view of which character you're looking in the lens of, yeah, I guess anything could technically be a villainous story if it has like a mean girl or whatever.
In this video, you might argue a hot dog is a sandwich, just as you might argue
I mean,
Yona
you can if you're very loose with your definition.
Or more. Persona 4, true center villainous series. Octopath Traveler 2 Temenos lead in Throne story? That's top center, gang. Steins Gate is secretly a villainous series all along, you just don't know it until the very end. Bang Dream My Go? That's a top left solo leveling? Okay, maybe not that one. The point is, there could be, in fact, villainous stories everywhere, with those with eyes to see. But let's take out the mock debates, except for the ones that you'll want to have in the comments, and hey, I'll meet you there, and jump into another inarguable villainous recommendation. To wrap this up, let's hit another comment suggestion that I read and took me totally by surprise. Stepmother's Märchen is so much better
one. That
than
one's
it has
so
any right to
beautiful
be.
too.
And I know that's true because
and there's this one where it's drawn by a artist. It's a webtoon, obviously, but I'm trying to remember. But the girl is able to see ghosts, and it's just so beautiful. It looks like a piece of artwork that you can actually find in the museum. Like, that's the style of drawing. And apparently they have gotten an education in that, which is why they are really into drawing those kinds of stuff. But I heard this artist as well has the same similar background, which makes sense as to why later on, like, their artwork is like so beautifully similar in style, but different. This one's really good.
Started writing this section, I was going to reread a chapter here or there, and then wound up rereading about 75 chapters before I caught myself at 3 in the morning having a train to catch the next day. If there's one recommendation from this crop of 4 that I think you should simply read without knowing the premise, this is the one. The art that you have seen speaks for itself. But if you need the pitch, Shuri is our lead, the demonized second wife of a key Marquess family, who, despite being 16, is now the stepmother to 4 children who have now lost their father. After surviving the terrible relationships with her kids, the familial politicking in addition to real politicking, and growing up herself, she manages to get the eldest to marriageable age, freeing her from her station, just to be time-looped back to the day of her husband's funeral, feeling miserable that now she has to do it all over again, finds an opportunity to have a good relationship with her adoptive kids, and resolves to make sure that this time she gets to see the eldest son's wedding. That is the
Aw.
main joy in this series for me,
that's
as
true.
opposed to my usual compliments of chess moves. Watching this family come together is special in how real it feels. There are missteps and growing pains, but everyone is in the same boat, and the care in the familial relationships comes off the page. And that actually extends to other families in this story too. That's not to say there's no strategic moves here. There's in fact a whole arc about a legal case that's a real page turner, but I'm
That really was.
for the characters and how Märchen pretty comfortably handles its core conflicts, both in the micro person to person and then also the macro, societal and political, with a touch of religion in there, because really, what is a manhwa Villainess series without some church machinations? If it feels like I'm staying much broader than usual here, it's because I am. Märchen kind of just needs to be experienced as it flows effortlessly.
It's an
between
artwork.
present and
That's
flashback
pretty
to
much what
convey
it
the
is.
trials and tribulations and complex character dynamics at play in a story that started long before chapter 1 in terms of true time, but once it builds up steam is impossible to put down. One chapter can bring an immense smile to your face in the cute dynamics at play, and then the next one can be utterly heart-wrenching with the words gone unsaid between loved ones. And the art. My
Yes,
God,
yes,
there are
yes.
panels in this thing that actually take my breath away with their beauty and thematic implications. It is maybe my favorite manhwa from an art perspective, and I think that says a lot because there are so many goddamn beautiful manhwa out there. That's how we're closing this one out. Do what I did after reading all the suggestions for it in the comments. Give Stepmother's Märchen a chance.
I'm really trying hard to remember the webtoon that...
Before we hit our final beat, one last really quick recommendation. A big thank you to Moon Anime for animating the actually good-looking parts of this video, aka the May I Ask Your Throne.
I really wish I remembered the name of the webtoon where the girl is able to see a ghost. Let me actually look it up real quick. Can see ghost. Mostly because it has just as beautiful of what is it? Of an artwork as the Märchen one, but it very much reminds you of pieces of artwork. And she can see ghosts and death. Save Prince. I'm trying to recall what it is. It's really hard to find. Or it's actually really popular, but I just can't remember at the top of my head, and it really annoys me that I cannot find out what it is. Like, just give me... Ooh, okay, I'll just... If I find out what it's called, then I'll put it in the pinned comment. Or if you know it, then please do let me know in the comments below. It's set in like a... I don't know if it's medieval, but this girl was always able to see ghosts in her previous life, and in this current life she pretends that she can't see them because she wants to live a normal life. And I believe she ends up realizing that she needs to help the prince in order for her family to stay safe. And so she pretends to be this other girl by wearing like a wig, I believe, that's dark haired. And the male lead the prince has like silver hair. I'm trying to remember. But that one has very, very gorgeous art, just as much, and maybe even a little bit more than Märchen to some degree. Although Märchen is like extremely close to. Actually, they're both beautiful. Who am I kidding?
Too perfect, and of course, the Märchen sections. I'll leave a link to their YouTube and other socials in the description, and I'd recommend checking out their Chainsaw Man video after this one if you need a change of pace. And hey, if you're in the market for a talented manga editor, well, I think the product speaks for itself. Okay, last recommendation. You should read Not Your Typical Reincarnation Story.
That one was
I'm
good.
not going to go into details on it. You should experience it unburdened by my pitch. It's complete, it's on webtoon, it's a great take on the villainous subgenre, eminently rootable protagonist who is clever, great twists, a genuinely heartwarming romance. I would feel pretty comfortable slotting it into my top 10 villainous stories of all time. That has the replay value seal of approval.
I do have one that I recommend as well that's complete. It's about this saintess. There are like two saintesses. One comes from our world, the other one is from that world, and she's seen as the villainess, and she has green hair, and then she has she thinks that she reincarnated or whatever. I don't remember. It was like isekai, I guess, transmigrated into that body, and she was from our world. But she believes that she'll die, so she tries to have a romance with a different person who is apparently one of the second leads, I believe, in the original story, or at least from her memory. And that one was actually good. It was the character growth was really good, and the relationship between the male lead and the female lead, the development of it was also really good. That was one of the heartwarming ones that if you like this one that he's pointing out right now, then you would like the other one too.
And so, unbelievably, we have yet again ended this video when there are still so many Villainess series I want to talk about. How will I survive without getting to talk about Wicked Woman? And yet, the time has come to release you from the rabbit hole that I am personally trapped in. Go, be free, my friends.
It's okay, I'm not free.
If you are stuck in here with me, let me know which Villainesses have caught your eye and what you'd like me to talk about next time. Perhaps there's even another chart that I've been hiding all along, containing secrets unknowable until the time is right. And as always, thank you for watching.
Look at that. So many. I wish I could probably have like an hour conversation about all the Villainous stories I read, but I read it like, I go through them so much to the point that I lost track of what was what. Especially when it comes to title. I can't remember any of the titles anymore, you guys. I read too much. Which is your favorite Villainous story though? Let me know down below. I'm quite curious. All in all, it was a nice way to, I think there were like 2 that I didn't read in here that I think I'll check out after this, but overall, a lot of them I did read and or dropped because it's not like I read through all of them. Some of them I just did not like the premise or the direction they were going towards, or I was just tired of certain tropes and I would drop them for that reason. But I think 2 in here I do want to check out. I do think that the ones that are character radical and structure neutral, that box, I don't really like those. And I also don't like the ones that are in structure radical and character neutral box, that one in the way bottom middle. It's not really to my taste. Do you guys have like a specific one that you tend to avoid but you really like? I find that these days I really prefer the ones that are character radical and structure purist. But in the beginning, I really enjoyed character purist and structure purist. And speaking of which, when we have to talk about the one that's the yandere one. It's complete, I believe, the novel. I don't know if the manga is complete, but it's basically like everyone's a yandere in there. And she has to basically navigate her life in the yandere world. That's supposed to be a yandere game, otome game, apparently. That one was very good too. I really enjoyed it. Kind of feel better for the girl, but at least she got through stuff, I guess. I'm not gonna spoil it in case you do want to read it. But yeah, there's just so many good ones with beautiful artwork. I think right now, lately, I just have too many bookmarked. I usually don't really think about the title because they usually name it something different, the official webtoon page, or if it's like Korean or whatever. So I usually don't think about like the actual names, and I typically just remember like the artwork and the story because it's a lot easier to remember after reading like so many, you know? I mean, even for other animes and webtoons and shows, that's just the easiest way to go about it. But yeah, let me know which ones you prefer the most. I'm very curious as to what it is. I'll try to find the webtoon that I was thinking of, but I don't know if I'll be able to find it. I'll try my best though. If I do find it, I'll have it in the pinned comment, but if you know it, then please let me know down below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to support the original video. And if you enjoyed this reaction, then be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!